ESPN is starting their first round of layoffs as we speak. And also, there has been reports that the Pac-12 could potentially go all in with Apple on their streaming deal. Today, to talk about these issues, I brought on a very special guest. His name, Jim Williams. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing fine. It's good to be with you, Couz. It's always fun to be with my friends in West Virginia.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I follow you on Twitter a lot. You put out a lot of interesting tweets. I know you're engaged a lot with the Pac-12 and Big 12 fan bases, and that's never boring, is it?
I put a question up this morning, Couz, that it was if everything stayed the same, okay, nobody added anybody, would both fan bases be happy? I mean, I would think that they would be. I mean, look at where the Pac-12 is. I'm sorry, the Big 12 is. At this point now, as opposed to a year from now, when back in the day when they had some definite concerns, and then now the Pac-12 was in kind of the same boat that the Big 12 was about a year ago. So if you could just, if everybody stayed the way it was right now, would they be happy? And we're finding out that most people are saying so far yes, but we'll see.
Me personally, I would be. I mean, I was perfectly content the way things were, and then all this other stuff started.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think I would be happy with it.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
from a Big 12 perspective.
Yeah, if you're a Big 12 guy, I mean, look at where you are. You got 4 new good institutions. You've got stability. You've got a decent revenue stream. You got a commissioner now who's very outwardly promoting the conference. There's really nothing not to like. And if you didn't add a single Pac-12 school, who cares? I mean, it's you did well. And from the Pac-12 standpoint, okay, you lost USC and UCLA, okay, but life goes on and you have to survive.
Right.
So whatever it is, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just this whole thing's gotten a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie, and I've been part of it.
We all have. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I certainly have. It is what it is. We hope that very soon we'll get to talk sports instead of talking realignment.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, most of you probably already know Jim from his appearances on Sick'em 365 and several other shows throughout the last few weeks, especially with his conference realignment talk heating up. But Jim is a 7-time Emmy Award-winning TV producer and director. He also writes a column for Forbes and Zinger, and I spent time with several networks, including ESPN. So that kind of segues into the first thing I want to talk about with you today, Jim, and that is ESPN. I saw today from, I think it was Andrew Marchand or John Iran one put out that, or maybe both of them actually put out that ESPN has started their first round of layoffs because of the cuts Disney's making.
Right.
I wanted to ask your opinion. Do you think that will have any impact at all on ESPN's likelihood to do a deal with the Pac-12?
No. The deal that the situation with regard to the hiring of people, right? They were they have a lot of programming on the air, and they have a lot of personnel. And believe me, I hate to see anybody get fired or laid off or in any way, shape, or form out of a job. That's sad. Right. And it's sad to be, and I'm quite sure that I'm sure that there are people up there in Bristol and in Charlotte, and they've got different locations around the country where they have their staffs. So this is a sad situation, but unfortunately, it will be, for all intents and purposes, the lower level employees who will get it, and it won't have anything to do with the rights fees that they pay. Or for that matter, even the production that they cost. But in many ways, because ESPN brought this on themselves by grossly overpaying in the late 80s all the way through the mid 2000s for rights fees. So the fact that this is all coming back to roost now is really just a problem with, unfortunately, we're in the middle of a television rights and media recession, all you have to do is look at what Bally's is doing, and in the West Virginia area, and know that probably have access to AT&T, where the Pirates and the Pens play their games on that regional sports network. They're going, they're not out of business, but they got out of the business. And so, at this point, we're going to have to figure out what's the next step, right? Because no longer can you expect the cable companies to pay you $5 a subscriber when they're losing subscribers. So I don't think it will impact the rights fees that the Pac-12 is willing to pay, because that's kind of like a right pocket, left pocket thing.
Gotcha.
Your production costs are what's called the below line costs, your rights fees and that sort of things, basically the above line costs. Will it affect, I think it will affect how many different events they attempt to get the rights to. But right now their focus is on keeping the NBA, which is incredibly important to them. And do I still think they could get in the PAC? In our little pre-show thing that we talked about, I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow if the winner of the rights package is ESPN.
Okay. I appreciate you explaining that, because many of us, even myself, have kind of assumed that the financial issues ESPN is facing, or that Disney is facing, which is, ESPN is obviously a part of that, have thought that maybe those issues would lead to them, okay, we're not going to pay a lot of money for these fees like we would have maybe, a year ago.
Well, I'm not going to say that they're going to overpay for it, but
right.
But they certainly would, if there's a number that they feel comfortable with, and let's say for the sake of argument that Apple puts in a bid of, I don't know, we'll just say 31, just to say 31. And ESPN comes in with a bid of, say, 27 or 28. I fully would expect that the Pac-12 would go with the ESPN bid of 28 and be happy with it and stay together.
Right.
I don't think they have to hit or exceed the number of 31 to stay together. I really don't. I'm not one of the people that thinks that, it's got to be 40. No, it doesn't have to be 40.
Right.
It has to be competitive. If it's competitive, they'll stay. There's no reason to move from a conference to a conference for $3 million.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, some of the schools might increase their travel costs that much by changing.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of them. But so I totally agree with you on there. My gut has always told me, I think it would have to be at least more than $5 million difference for them to move. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the exposure piece.
It could.
More so than it does the money, and that, which takes me to the next part of our conversation, and that's the Apple TV piece. I know you put out a tweet the other day about Apple wanting all or at least most of the rights for Pac-12 content. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, and then also as part of that, the sub licensing piece and how that could impact it as well?
Yeah, it's a wanting and getting thing, right? I may want to have a steak for lunch. I'm not going to get it, but I may want it. Okay, so my wife in the background is laughing. Okay, so that automatically knows I'm not getting a steak for lunch. Or dinner for that matter. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Leave that man, Mrs. Williams.
Yeah. There
Give that man some steak.
Give me something. Anyway, so Apple's very much all in on everything, right? I mean, that's their MO. But so what happens with an Apple deal? An Apple deal is they're all in on the MLS. And what they did, and they were smart, they understand that there's going to be a learning curve. You're not going to sign up for Apple TV today because it's a streamer, and some people don't, have no idea how to do it or want it or all that sort of thing. So they understand there's going to be a learning curve. That being said, what they did is they sat down with Fox and with the MLS, and they carved out a package of games where Apple produces everything, which actually technically is produced by the MLS. And then they sub-licensed to Fox 15 games, which they then broadcast on either Fox or on FS1. Okay, so that's how that package works. I could see a similar package working in the Pac-12 with a linear partner. It could be Fox because, again, Apple TV and Fox have played together well, and so that might work. It could be the CW. It could be anybody of, it could be CBS for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a sub-licensing deal, which would help them get to that linear. Now, the interesting part about this, and something that Spencer McLaughlin at Locked On Pac-12 came up with the other day, is he did some deep dive into the last 5 years of Pac-12 linear on television, on broadcast, and it was they never exceeded 53%. So if you're, to argue that we have to have over 50% streaming is a bit of a ridiculous argument, since you haven't had it in the last 5 years, and you've had, when they signed that contract, okay, with ESPN and Fox 12 years ago, it was the largest contract signed by any conference.
Mm-hmm.
That was 12 years ago. So now we've come full circle, and they're now on the heels of signing not necessarily one of the biggest contracts, but is it possible to go all in with Apple TV? It is, because Apple is understanding of the fact that there's got to be a linear component to it. And so that's possible. Will they get it? Just like my steak, I don't know. I mean, I can want something, we can want it to happen. It may not happen. We'll just have to see how it plays out. I don't think George Kliavkoff is as foolish or as dumb, bumbling as he has been portrayed, by some folks in the media. He didn't get to where he got by being stupid. And
Right.
so I think that George Kliavkoff, even though he may be in the witness relocation program at this point because nobody knows where he's at, he certainly is not going to bring the presidents a deal that they don't understand or want.
Yeah. He's going to know ahead of time what they will accept and what they want, what they won't accept.
He knows. So
yeah.
And I can't believe that they don't have the soft numbers on it anyway. I mean,
well, I think they do.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I don't know if you listen to Greg Flugar or not
I
over
do.
on.
Mhm.
And this kind of ties into my secondary question here with this. First of all, before I get to the Greg Flugar part, when you mentioned sub-licensing, would ESPN be willing to be part of that sub-licensing piece or no?
I have no idea. I don't. I will say that they
In your
haven't.
opinion.
Well, they haven't yet. In other words, they haven't done it. I haven't seen it where they've done it yet.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they won't. Or
Right.
wouldn't. Look, right now we're in a position where people want to do what they feel is best for them.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN walked away from the MLS deal that Fox accepted. So, read into that what you will. I don't know. And I guess we'll just find out if Patino has decided that's what he wants to do or doesn't want to do. We'll figure it out at the end. ESPN is kind of like Apple in that they really don't like not doing deals where they're not the lead dog in the race.
Yeah.
Which is why they didn't get the deal in with the Big Ten. So it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I can't see. Here's why I think you can't ever count ESPN out here. If Apple or whomever it is, right? Let's say it's Apple and Fox, just for this argument's sake. If they're the partners and they offer, we said like the 30 or so, whatever, ESPN does not want to cede the coast. They wouldn't have a team on the West Coast.
Right.
Now you could make an argument. Well, geez, we could. The Big 12 could offer, add a Fresno State or add, Boise State or those situations. Great, they could, but that's not going to equal Pac-12 after dark. It's just not.
Right.
So I could foresee them going in again, as I say, not at a big number, but at a number that they feel that the presidents could live with.
Right.
So.
And with the reports that are the rumors that are coming out of Arizona State, which Mr. Greg Flugar has talked about from one of his reported sources, is that Arizona State is saying that, or at least someone high up the food chain there is saying ESPN is a critical piece to this. They want to be on ESPN. That's and it seems to be the most important detail to them at this point, even bigger maybe than the money, is being on ESPN. So that's why I asked that question is, maybe Apple TV and ESPN can do a deal together where Apple TV sub-licenses ESPN X amount of games per year, and ESPN can still be involved in it somehow.
It's possible. I don't see it happening, but it's possible. If it put yourself in Apple TV's position, okay? If you're paying the money, the big money, why would you lease it to a company that is in streaming competition with you with ESPN?
Good point. Great point. Yes.
Fox, on the other hand, doesn't have a streaming partner. We know that Fox doesn't stream games. They have Tubi, which is their streaming service, but it's not their main process. So, as I said before, is anything possible? Absolutely, ESPN. But I would think ESPN would go in heavy to take it all, as opposed to sub-licensing with Apple TV.
Yeah, I could see that being the most likely scenario. And I don't think the Pac-12 presidents, even though, like you said, they do have 53% already, we've heard them make comments in the public that they're not happy with more than 50%. So
I don't believe it. I don't. There's a lot of posturing going on, and presidents have to make. They're not making this decision for the athletic department, because let me just mention this: there is not an athletic department in either the Pac-12 or the Big 12 that makes money. They all lose money. Okay, so when Texas moved out and SC moved out, those were the only two who actually had programs that made money. So this is actually when you hear the academic aspect of this being argued, that's a big part of it, because they make 10 times academically from research and development and all of the stuff that they deal with, specifically in the PAC, because the PAC has, I believe it was between 50 and 60,000 graduates that are in the tech industry out there. I mean, so these people birthed Apple TV and Amazon.
Right.
Hard to turn around and say to these people, if the president of the university, hey, I'm sorry, we really don't want to go with you, even though, your graduates are, we, our brochures tell people how much, we really like being involved with you all, guys. And by the way, the Apple Watch that you're wearing, that was developed at Stanford University, and the AI division of Amazon was developed at the University of Washington. All that's great, but now we got an AD, in Arizona, at Arizona State, that thinks he's going to lose a basketball, person. That's like, they don't care. Right. Presidents care about the bottom line of the university, not the bottom line of the athletic department. That helps, but that is not their main concern. And you have to divorce yourself from academics versus athletics. Okay, and so when the AD at Arizona speaks, or the president of Arizona and Arizona speak, they posture themselves to say, okay, George, here's what we want. But when everybody sits around the table, are they going to be, because it takes 8 votes out of the 10 to make this work. If they get 8 votes, do those 2 schools who don't vote for it bolt? It's possible, but it's also possible that they stay. Right. So, I wouldn't be too panicked at this point in time. Let's just see what the deal is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's kind of what most of the people at least most of the 8 presidents have come out and said, look, we're willing to wait. Let's see what the deal is going to be before we make any decisions, which makes sense, right? I mean, why would you leave until you know what the deal is going to be? Well,
and you also have to look at every aspect of what do I get if I leave, other than $31 million from the Big 12.
Right.
What, because again, academically, what do I gain? What do I lose?
Right.
So, it's going to be interesting. And again, this is, what are we talking about? It's about 1:50 on the East Coast here on a Monday. So whatever happens in the conversation we're having right now could change by the time this conversation finishes or it gets 2:00. So
absolutely,
the whole thing here is just calm down, folks. We'll know when we know.
absolutely.
But I really kind of feel that somewhere early in the month of May, maybe the second or third week of May, we will know. Reason being, that's about 11 months, and 11 months was what it took the Big Ten to get their deal done. So we'll see, but it certainly makes for good conversation on Twitter.
It does.
Yeah,
Everybody gets fired up about it one way or the other, don't they?
Yep.
But you know what?
Right?
We love our teams and we love our conferences.
Absolutely, as it should be. How did the West Virginia spring game go?
It went okay. I mean, it was, I'm typically not a big spring game guy, but this one was actually pretty entertaining. They did a lot of things with the fans, some fan interaction stuff. They did some one-on-one competition stuff along with the game, obviously. So
one last quick thing, and I apologize.
No problem.
It's I just wanted to say, because I haven't had a chance or opportunity to say it, but I'm just sad to hear the passing of Blue and Gold Dude. I mean, he was quite a character. And I know that he was very big to the West Virginia fans out there. And
he was.
It's a shame. I mean, you lost a very good, passionate, and very clever young man. Incredibly talented. So sorry.
Way too young too.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers continue to go out to his family and friends and
absolutely
colleagues. Absolutely. Yep. So thank you for that, Jim. That's going to be much appreciated by all of us here in Mountaineer Nation. I can tell you.
Well, he was quite a character.
Yep, he was, and he was nice, and he was a nice guy too. I
never had the pleasure of meeting him. We had exchanged DMs, and I had hoped to join him, but unfortunately, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And, I was very sad to see him pass. It's you're right. He's a very young guy and big family, and we just hope that everybody in the Mountaineer Nation remembers him, because passion is the importance of what we do here. And Couz, we are nothing in this business. People ask me, well, what's the level? What keeps college sports going? And I said, stories and storytellers.
Right.
It's the going back in history and talking about it, and just the passion that you show. So what you do, and what many of the people in Mountaineer Nation and around the different schools, both in the Big 12 and around the country, is you keep the passion alive, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for those words, Jim. It means a lot. And Jim, thank you again for coming on. Everybody, please go interact with Jim on Twitter at JW Media DC. You can see it there on the screen for those who are watching. If you're not, like I said, if you're listening on podcast platforms, it's at JW Media DC. It's Jim Williams. Jim, thank you again.
Couz, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Have a good day.
You have a great day yourself.
Mm-hmm.